Imagine a prophecy, a promise that your ancestors will return from the dead, that your enemies will be swept into the sea, and that a new world of limitless abundance will dawn. Now imagine being told that to achieve this, you must first destroy everything you own. This is not a fictional tale. This is the true story of Nongqawuse, a teenage Xhosa prophetess whose divine visions led her people to one of the most catastrophic and inexplicable acts of self-destruction in history. A story where faith, colonialism, and desperation collided with devastating consequences. To understand this tragedy, we must first step into the world of the Xhosa people in the mid-19th century. For nearly a century, they had been engaged in a series of brutal wars with the British Cape Colony, known as the Frontier Wars. With each conflict, they were pushed further back, losing precious land and sovereignty. But the pressure wasn't just military. A devastating lung sickness was sweeping through their herds, killing the cattle that were the very foundation of their economy, their diet, and their spiritual identity. The Xhosa world was under siege, gripped by a deep trauma and the longing for salvation. It was into this cauldron of despair that a young, orphaned girl named Nongqawuse stepped forward in April of 1856. By the banks of the Xhosa River, she and a friend were scaring birds from her uncle's fields when she experienced a vision that would change history. She described encountering two, perhaps three, mysterious strangers of striking appearance and luminous skin. She believed them to be powerful ancestral spirits. They gave her a message, a covenant for her people's deliverance. To usher in this new dawn, the Xhosa had to make a supreme sacrifice. They must kill every single one of their remaining cattle and destroy all their grain stores and crops. In return for this ultimate act of faith, the spirits promised a miracle on a specific, appointed day. The sun would rise red and then reverse its course. From the valleys, new, more beautiful and disease-free cattle would emerge. Pits would overflow with abundant grain. Most importantly, the great ancestral heroes would rise from the dead, their strength renewed, to lead a final victorious charge that would drive the British settlers into the ocean. It was a vision of total purification and resurrection. The message was clear: destroy the corrupted old world to gain a perfect new one. The prophecy tore the Xhosa nation in two. The believers, known as the Amatamba, or the Soft Ones, followed the command with fervent hope, supported even by the paramount chief, Sarhili. The non-believers, the Amabagotya, or the Hard Ones, refused, watching in horror. Driven by faith and desperation, the believers began the great slaughter. Historians estimate that between 300,000 and 400,000 cattle were killed. The land was filled with the stench of rotting carcasses. Then they waited. The appointed day came and went. Nothing happened. The promised resurrection never arrived. All that was left was the utter destruction of their food supply. The result was a famine of biblical proportions. An estimated 40,000 to 80,000 Xhosa people starved to death. Their society, their political structure, their very nation collapsed entirely. To survive, the starving survivors were forced to cross into the Cape Colony to seek work, providing a massive influx of cheap labor for the white economy. This led to a controversial modern interpretation that the event, whether by accident or sinister design, functionally achieved the colonists' goals, breaking Xhosa independence and creating a subjugated workforce. Was it a naive spiritual movement, a calculated military strategy that failed, or something even more complex? Nongqawuse was eventually placed in protective custody by the British.
The exact circumstances of her death are unknown, but her legacy is forever etched in pain. She remains one of the most haunting figures in South African history, not a malicious fraud, but a vessel for the collective desperation of her people. Her story is a profound tragedy about the extremes of faith under the crushing weight of colonialism. It is a permanent warning of how the promise of a glorious future can be used to justify the destruction of the present, and an echo of a trauma that still resonates today.